allow our community members to connect.
Great.
And maybe he was stuck in webinar or practice mode, so it could be them connecting right now. I do see a couple people connecting.
Okay. Let's give it a second.
There's Gary.
All right, we'll proceed. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the July Springs Municipal Advisory Council meeting. It's so nice to see all of you here today. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 on July 27th. And I'm going to ask Vice Chair Hulette to roll call, please.
Chair Iturri.
Here.
Council Member Brown.
Here.
Council Member Reyes. Mary Carmen.
Can you hear me here?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Council Member Goldman.
Here.
Council Member Lombard.
Here.
Council Member Willett is here. Council Member Perot.
Here.
It's Perot, is that right?
I say Perot. We Americanized it. Yeah, it should be Perot.
All right.
Yeah.
Council Member Alcaraz.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You'll get a chance to meet our new council members here in a little bit. So we'll keep moving forward, and maybe Jordi will be able to join us soon. So again, welcome to the July meeting. Just a reminder that the question and answer in the chat are turned off. If there's a request for public comment, please raise your hand and we'll move you forward to the panel. If we have to state that if any time that this meeting appears to be hacked, we will end the meeting. And also, I think that's it for my notes to start the meeting. We do need to approve the minutes from the June meeting, and I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to look them over and wondering if there's any corrections or additions or changes that need to be made. And if they're not, if we can get a motion to approve and a second.
I made a motion to approve.
Thank you. Avram first, Ray second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Anything? Okay, thank you. And who was the abstention?
Frankly, I think I may have said that incorrectly because I don't think I was appointed until this meeting, so never mind.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. So we will begin with, Karina, tell me if we need to stop for any reason. We will begin with public comment, and this is for anything that does not appear on the agenda. And if there was anyone interested in making a public comment.
For those members of the public who wish to make a comment at this time, please use the raise hand feature. You will be unmuted and allowed to make a public comment. A los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario en español, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano en su computador o celular y se le otorgará el permiso para hacer su comentario.
And we have 2 minutes for public comment, and I see a couple of hands.
I do. Give me 1 second. And make sure to please state your name for the record. Let me just get my timer here. It will be Nick, followed by Fred. Nick, go ahead.
Hello, Nicholas Turner for the record. Thank you again, Council, for having me. Hopefully you're not tired of hearing about the skate park at this point. We had a great cleanup day on July 10th. Many community members came out and lent a hand. It was a lovely day. We gave some skateboards away to kids. So yeah, that went very well. And it will mark the beginning of our stewardship currently of the skate park that we plan on undertaking. So we will be doing bi-weekly to monthly cleanups, not necessarily the large event that we had on July 10th, but periodic cleanups. So if there are any community concerns, if you happen to be hiking by, driving by, notice anything fishy going on at the skate park, you can feel free to contact us and we will do what we can to take care of it within our abilities. And beyond that, we are still moving forward with design and look out for a couple more events we'll be having with Sonoma Originals. And that's it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nick.
Chair Iturri, our interpreter has joined. I'd like to make the announcement at this time.
Please do. Thank you. Welcome, Jordi.
A los miembros de la comunidad que deseen escuchar la reunión en español, contamos con interpretación al español. Vaya a la parte baja a la derecha de su pantalla. Ahí tiene el icono de interpretación o interpretation. Haga clic y seleccione Spanish para español. Estará escuchando la reunión con interpretación de Jordi. Y también nos puede ver a través de Facebook. So, Bob, you should be able to connect to the Spanish channel now. KSBY está transmitiendo en español a través de YouTube. Muchísimas gracias a Bob. KSBY will be broadcasting our Spanish channel as well. So thank you, Bob and KSBY. We may proceed. Fred. Give me one.
Good evening, Chair Iturri and MAC members and the new members. It's nice to see new members here in the MAC. I just wanted to draw your attention to the project at the old Paul's Field Complex and note that that's really much needed affordable housing as a component of that project, and that I would hope that the MAC could back it somehow, maybe as an entity, or I know Supervisor Gorin, I believe, is backing the project. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to that and mention that, you know, high density infill projects are really good with conserving water. This is a great project because it's near school, it's near the clinic, it's near shopping. People can walk to all this stuff. It's just about a perfect project, and it's going to bring the Springs some tax revenue, which will help to finance Springs. And, you know, maybe one day if we have a city of Sonoma Valley, then the Springs will be a more desirable prize if it has some actual tax base and not just residential. And we know there's a high inflation in the Valley here, and only getting 2 minutes must be a symptom of that high inflation. So maybe in the future we could get 3 minutes. But thanks very much.
Thank you, Fred. Is there any other public comment for things not on the agenda?
I don't see any more raised hands.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Community events announcements. Mari Carmen, anything to share with us, or anyone else have event announcements?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
So currently, on behalf of the health center, we're still holding vaccine clinic Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And you can look at the svhpvaccines.org website for more information in both English and Spanish. And I also do want to let you know that we are working on having something in lieu of back to school health fair. It will not be what has been before, but we will be providing school supplies and more details to come.
Thank you, Mari Carmen. Any other events?
For those members of the public who wish to make a community event announcement, please use the raise hand feature. We will unmute you and allow for the announcement. I do see one at this time. Miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un anuncio comunitario, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano. Se le otorgará el permiso para hacer su anuncio. Por favor, diga su nombre y su comentario. Please state your name for the record. Erica, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I work for Sonoma Ecology Center, and we are starting a new creek stewardship program, building off of some of the momentum that we've had in past, but also substantially supported by the Supervisor Gorin to look not at just doing pilot programs to do creek cleanups under identified priority bridges, but also to look at supporting and partnering with all other community members that are at the nexus of reducing impacts of urban living on our watershed ecosystems. And so we've been doing outreach to the community, and the email to contact us at is creek@sonomaecologycenter.org. And my email is erica@sonomaecologycenter.org. And we welcome all sorts of comments and invitations and event collaborations. We've had 3 really successful events, and we've got a model we're really excited to pursue and looking to collaborate. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more event comments?
I don't see any more raised hands, but I would like to take the opportunity to invite the community to the next charla comunitaria, and I will say it in Spanish as it is an all Spanish conversation. Quiero invitar a los miembros de la comunidad a la próxima charla comunitaria el jueves 12 de agosto a las 5:30 de la tarde a través de Zoom. Tendremos una presentación del superintendente de las escuelas de aquí del Valle de Sonoma. También tendremos información sobre las tarjetas Pandemic EBT y recursos e información sobre preparación ante emergencias con Listos, la organización Listos, así es de que estén pendientes. Además, actualizaciones de parte del condado. Gracias.
Gracias, Karina. Okay, so I'm so pleased to welcome our new council members and give them my chair report today as the opportunity for them to share a couple of minutes about themselves and what motivated them to become a part of this group. So I really appreciate Joanne, Hannah, and Jesus's participation. And we'll start with Joanne and Hannah, and then Jesus. So welcome to the Springs Municipal Advisory Council.
Thank you. Starting off with your question about why be involved, because it's clear that the most exciting and vital and full of potential geographic section in Sonoma Valley clearly is the Springs. And because we live right next door. So, I mean, that helps, but mostly, I mean, this is totally exciting. This is a community that's growing and building and looking at itself and really being thoughtful about what the priorities are. So it's an opportunity to be involved in that discussion. My background is I moved to Sonoma a few years ago, about 7 or 8 now, from the East Bay. I'm a Californian, mostly from Oakland and Berkeley. I have 3 degrees from Cal. I'm a lawyer. I'm a retired judge. I know a lot about prisons and jails and corrections and child welfare, but mostly my heart is with involving myself in community activities and ways in which people can have a voice and have their voice respected. So I'm on the board of KSVY. I'm a president of a charter school at Treasure Island and a couple of other things, but mostly I'm hope that some of my background and skills can contribute to our discussions and visioning the Springs. So thank you for letting me participate.
Thank you. Hannah?
Thanks for going first, Joanne. I am not the judge. I grew up in the city of Sonoma, and I did go to UC Berkeley, and then I moved home in 2009 to the Springs. I've lived here on and off since then, with a little time in Oakland. And I wanted to join the MAC in 2017 when I moved back, but I kind of thought I didn't have enough, credentials to be a member. And then I just got really, I guess, upset when we had 2 people die at the intersection of 12 and Verano. And I just thought, people need to be paying more attention, and why not me? So my passion is really infrastructure, safe streets. I love to bike, I love to walk. And we do have what should be a walkable community and a bikeable community. So my hope is just to really focus on what's going on with our streets, our infrastructure, and I'm also really passionate about housing. And, my parents moved to Sonoma Valley because it was an affordable place, and it is no longer that. And so that's kind of where my passion lies, and I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. It's lovely to have you both here. Jesus?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jesus. Why I want to be involved? Because I want to help my community. The reason why I wanted to be part of this MAC is because originally I wanted to go abroad and help people in outside of the United States, but then I realized that I can do that here in my community, here in my neighborhood. My background, I came from Mexico 10 years ago, and yeah, I also went to Cal, and I just recently graduated and last year, and yeah, so my goal is to change through political action, and also a way for me to put my foot in the door so that I can help more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Way to represent Berkeley. Holy smokes. Thank you all very, very much. I'm very excited to have you all here, and look forward to getting to know you better as we work together in the MAC. So thank you again. It's a big commitment to do more than to continue to do more. So we really appreciate it. Okay. I wanted to thank Bob Taylor from KSVY. He is he's broadcasting for us in English and in Spanish, and we really, really appreciate it. He's here for us at every single meeting. So thank you, Bob. And then I think I see Avram's hand up.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Welcome, all of you. It's so great to have you. I appreciate everything you said. And what's interesting is at least half this council is from UC Berkeley. I don't know about others, so that's pretty amazing. I don't know what that says about UC Berkeley, but it gets people involved. So that's good. It's nice to have all of you aboard.
So my last comment is about our annual report. The lion's share of the report is done. I'm still missing a couple of reports on ad hocs. The plaza is one of them, just kind of a paragraph perhaps on what happened in that work. And then I can't remember the others, but I'll reach out to you individually for those of you who are leading those different ad hocs. And we're really close to having the report finished. I want to thank Ray and Iris for all their work on it, and Karina for all her help in making the report happen. So we do need a few more pieces to fill in, and I will reach out to you individually about what is needed.
Maite?
Yes.
I'm looking it over again. I'm thinking that some of it is redundant. I think that Karina mentioned that. So, and I'm responsible for part of that redundancy. So, oops.
Yeah, I'm going to go through it again this weekend, this week. It's not really the weekend yet. This week, and take out some of that redundancy and some of the things. When we started the report, we hadn't accomplished some of the things that we've accomplished. So I need to change the verb tense on a couple of things. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Karina, did you want to make a comment on behalf of Supervisor Gorin?
Supervisor Gorin intended to attend this meeting. However, she is at the Board of Supervisors meeting happening now and unable to join. So we can move to the next item.
Thank you. So we have a presentation from LGBTQ Connections, and we're super excited to have Isamar here with us to share some of the work that they've been doing in our county. LGBTQ Connections was super supportive of our school district in the past, in our community, and some of in supporting students here. So I'm very excited to have them here and share the work that they've been doing. So I will turn it over to Isamar. Thank you.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for inviting us. Oops, sorry, my document went away. We came up with like a little agenda here to talk to y'all about some of the issues that LGBTQ people face, and then also what LGBTQ terminology is, as well as obviously like the work that we're doing in the community to help out the community. And I have a co-presenter here. Say hi, Fernando.
Hello.
I'm sorry, Fernando, I didn't introduce you. My apologies.
No worries, it's all right.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Hey there. Let me introduce myself. I'm Fernando. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for LGBTQ Connection, not just in Napa, but also Sonoma County. And it's a really awesome job. I've lived in Napa my entire life, right next door to Sonoma Valley. Absolutely beautiful. I remember, I know that Train Town is right in Sonoma. So I remember my parents would take me there all the time. And I would ride the train and go see the animals. So Sonoma Valley just meant really good things for me as a child. And just seeing it grow and expand and just become a lot bigger is also very exciting. So I love all of the diversity and everything that's goes on there. I've been with LGBTQ Connection for, it's almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years on Sunday. I've done so much learning. I feel like we've trained over 2,000 people throughout my 2 years. Probably a lot more than 2,000, but it's really exciting that y'all are interested in learning, and I'm really happy that y'all reached out to us. So thank you. And then we have Isamar.
Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Isamar. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a youth engagement coordinator here at LGBTQ Connection. I started when we were doing a lot of work in Sonoma Valley, and we actually had an agreement with the school where we were on campus, and that was going, and it was really great. And then the pandemic hit and made things really hard for us having a on-campus presence. But hopefully now that things are coming more in person, we will hopefully establish that once again. And I've been with LGBTQ Connection as a staff for a little over 2 years. And I actually started off as a youth leader myself. I don't know if y'all know Esperanza, but she was my mentor. And having been on the youth leadership team as a young person who had just come out, and I really needed community. And I was also really, really shy at the time. Having Esperanza as a mentor and going through the leadership team program really, really shaped me into who I am today. So I'm really thankful that you are giving us the opportunity to speak here. That way you get to know a little bit more about our program and how it can support your young people, especially because youth in Sonoma Valley and the Springs and in surrounding areas really, really do need support.
Thank you, Isamar. Am I able to? Yes, I am. Okay. I'm going to use the whiteboard and I'm going to go over SOGI, which stands for sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And so let me get that going.
You should be able to screen share, Fernando. There you go.
Awesome. Love it. And then Isamar, I think just keep an eye on the chat just in case. But also please chime in whenever you feel like it. So I'm going to create 4 little lines. And we're going to start off with, in blue, sex. Now, our definition of sex is assigned at birth based on biological characteristics. Okay. Oops. Okay. And so some vocab words that fall under sex assigned at birth. Oh, and by biological characteristics, I mean sex chromosomes, hormones, the genitalia. And it's pretty much what what the doctors look for when they're trying to determine the sex of the baby before they're born or at birth. And so some terms are male, female, and then there's also intersex. And Isamar, will you tell people about intersex, please?
Yes, so what intersex is when there is an ambiguous development of any of the 3 components that Fernando had mentioned. So maybe that means that your reproductive organs did not grow in the stereotypical way that a male or a female did. That could also mean maybe your hormone levels are higher in, like testosterone, but you were born and everybody thought you were female, but in reality, the hormone levels are imbalanced. Or it could also mean having a combination of different chromosomes as well. It's not just XX and XY. There's also XXX, XXY, a variety of different variations of that. And intersex is just an umbrella term to capture those variations. And intersex is a lot more common than you might expect. It's the same frequency as red hair. So the amount of people you see with red hair, that's the same amount of people that you know who are intersex as well.
Thank you. Also feel free to jump in with any questions if any of you have any. I'm going to move on to sexual orientation. Sexual orientation, our working definition, and I say working definition is because these are the current definitions that we have for them. They are not perfect. The deaf people and people's definitions are going to keep evolving and changing as they get to understand themselves a little bit more. So here we have feelings of attraction related to gender. And please note that I wrote gender and not sex. So I will get into gender after this, but I do want to point that out. And so some sexual orientations that we know of are gay, straight, lesbian, and then we get into pansexual, asexual, queer, and are there any others that I'm missing, Isamar?
Don't forget bisexual.
Thank you. Thank you. And so here, just to answer some of, define some of these, queer, it definitely has a bit of trauma behind it based on its history. And so when using the word queer, I would definitely be cautious about it because some people don't really like that term. And so our recommendation is to not use the word queer to identify somebody unless they've identified themselves that way already. And so it is a term that has been taken back, and it is kind of like an umbrella term where when somebody tells you, oh, I'm queer, they're just pretty much telling you that they're not straight. Pansexual is a term that people use. Like if you think about it, when you take a panoramic picture, you're taking a picture of a wide area, and think of that area as a spectrum. Well, pansexual people have feelings of attraction related to the spectrum of genders rather than just specific genders. Asexual is no feelings of attraction related to gender whatsoever. And then bisexual can mean different things to different people. It could mean that you're attracted to just men and women. Some people like to define it as I'm related, I feelings of attraction related to two genders, my gender and another gender, which kind of leaves it open. And this is where I like to say that pretty much whenever somebody tells you what their sexual orientation is and you're genuinely curious about it, my recommendation is asking them, okay, well, what does that mean to you? Like if someone comes out to you as a lesbian and you're not entirely sure what that means, then feel free to ask, like, okay, what does that mean to you? Because that question usually comes off as genuinely curious, and you're kind of continuing that conversation, and it shows that you're open to learning. All right, and then the next one we've got is gender, gender identity. Now, this definition is a little bit trickier because when people realize what their gender identity is, they have this deep sense of they know what gender they are around the ages of 3 to 5. And it's really hard to fully understand it. And it's also difficult to put words to it. At first, it may show up as expressing themselves in a specific way. Like this person would much rather wear dresses or pants, or they would much rather have sparkles in their hair, or whatever it may be. And so our definition is the way someone knows themselves. And some gender identities that we identify in these presentations is transgender. And then kind of opposite of that is cisgender. And so transgender, think of somebody who was assigned male at birth, and then they're transitioning away from that, or on the other side of that. They're just moving away from maleness or masculinity, or sometimes maybe even, but yeah, just moving away from it. Whereas cisgender, it's directly lined up with the way your gender identity is. So this is where I like to say that with SOGI, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, it's not just LGBTQ people who have a SOGI, but it's all people who have a SOGI. And so me, for example, I would be more than happy to tell you all that I'm a cisgender man. And so that tells you a bit about me. Then moving forward, there's also male, female, non-binary, gender queer, gender non-conforming, and two-spirit. With two-spirit, I like to point out that this is a term, kind of an umbrella term that is very specifically for used by Indigenous folks. One two-spirit identity that I can speak on is the Mushe people. Mushe are usually found in Mexico and Oaxaca, and they are usually men assigned at birth, and they take on this role of caretaker. They take care of the children, they help with chores around the house, they help with cooking, cleaning, all of that. And they are definitely celebrated in that town in Oaxaca. And it's one of the, if you watch the Taco Chronicles on Netflix, you'll see Lady Tacos Canasta on there, who is trying to become a politician now, which is really awesome. Yeah. Any other gender identities that I'm forgetting, Isamar? I know that there's a lot, but any ones that are meant to be pointed out?
Agender.
Thank you. Agender. Kind of like asexual under the sexual orientations. Agender is just someone who does not feel like they have a gender, or doesn't, what's the word? They don't subscribe to any of the genders. All right. Now moving on to expression.
Do you want to define non-binary?
Oh, yes, sorry. Non-binary, or do you want to define it?
I can. Yeah, I'm fine with it. So we know that there is, the standard male, female, but there is beyond that binary, some people who identify as neither male nor female. And this binary, is often seen as one or the other, but in reality, it's actually a continuous line where somebody may identify, right in between male and female. That might mean that they identify with both genders. That might mean that they don't identify with either of those, or they can fall anywhere along the line. Like maybe they identify more femininely, but don't quite identify as a female, or vice versa. Maybe they feel more masculine, but don't identify as a male. So non-binary can mean anything to anybody. It just usually means that they don't identify as either male or female.
Thank you. And then Fred had a good question, and I appreciate it. Transgender and cisgender, those are usually followed by man or woman or person or student. They're adjectives, and so they transgender and cisgender are always followed by those terms. So a cisgender male is somebody who was assigned male at birth and they still identify as male. Same with a cisgender female. So transgender and then male and female can be combined in any way. Cisgender, male and female, also same thing. I hope that answers your question.
What we call transgender and cisgender, we use those as describing words, because transgender and cisgender are not like gender identities. They're not something that you'll say, I identify as transgender. Usually you say I identify as a transgender male, or I identify as a trans non-binary person, or I identify as a cisgender male or a cisgender female. The same thing can be said with gender nonconforming. Sometimes people will still identify with male or female, but will attach gender nonconforming at the beginning to show that they don't really conform to the standard stereotypes of male and female.
Yeah. All right. So next up we have expression. And this is just the way someone shows. I almost put the vocab word in the definition. Gender outwardly. Okay, and some of the ways that people do this, usually we do a really fun celebrity activity before we get into the vocab and everything, just to keep that ridiculous doodle in people's minds when they think of Soji. But today we didn't have time to do that. And so usually I would ask for people to come up with a celebrity that is super masculine, or a celebrity that's very, very feminine. And people always come up with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Shakira or Beyonce, and it's funny how those three are the three that always come up. And so, yes, masculine and feminine are definitely ways to express your gender outwardly. There's also androgynous. Kind of like David Bowie or a few other celebrities. I feel like I can't think of another, but yes, androgynous. And then also drag is a form of expression. It definitely is a performative to put on a show and to entertain, but it is a form of expression nonetheless. So this is Soji. Everybody has one, and I think one of the biggest takeaways that I would love for everyone to have is that just because you're assigned sex at assigned a sex at birth, or you identify in a specific sexual orientation, all of those different sections do not intermingle. Your gender identity doesn't make your sexual orientation or the way you express yourself, because there may be people who are transgender but they still dress the way you, well, you don't know exactly what someone's sexual orientation is or gender identity is by the way that they're expressing themselves outwardly. And so just keep that in mind when talking to people and dealing with people in general. Feel free to, well, I feel like you're recording this, so, but if you want to take a picture of this and have it forever, you're more than welcome to. I'm also going to save a copy of it as a PDF, and I'll share it with Isamar to share with all of you later on as well. So yeah, that was this part of the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you for going over that quick vocab, Fernando. It's important to know some of that basic language. That way, if you ever encounter anybody who identifies as any of these sexual orientations or genders and you don't know about them, that you're able to know what that means, you're able to relate to them, you're able to provide if they need any support or services. In addition to SOGI, something that I like to touch on real quickly is also the importance of pronouns, because that's something that is really having a lot of change lately, and it's a lot of young people who are really driving this change. And also just to let you know kind of like what it is and why people use it, and why it's been changing recently. So, most of us, we went to English class and we learned to utilize pronouns as quick, convenient ways to refer to somebody without having to say their name all the time. So instead of saying like, Fernando is my co-presenter, Fernando will be doing SOGI, Fernando is really awesome. I can just say, Fernando is my co-presenter, he is doing SOGI and he's really awesome. Just so that it's like quick, easy, and reduces the redundancy in naming somebody each time. So with pronouns, people will have their own set of pronouns. That could be he, him, his, which is what most people who identify as male or identify as masculine use. There's also she, her, hers, which is what people who identify as female or on the feminine side of the spectrum would use for themselves. And there is also they, them, theirs, which is oftentimes what people who identify as non-binary, gender non-conforming, agender will use for themselves. And a lot of the times people will say they, them is not singular, but actually, according to the dictionary, it is a valid use singularly. People use it all the time as a singular pronoun. So like, if there's a water bottle in the office and you don't know whose it is, you would write out an email like, hey, somebody left their water bottle in the office. Can you please come and get it? And you do that so naturally, you don't even blink an eye because you're not sure whose water bottle it is. You don't know which pronouns they use, and you just use their, they, them, theirs as a easy way to be inclusive of everybody. In Spanish, there's also, the feminine pronoun would be ella, the masculine pronoun would be él. With Spanish, it's a little bit trickier with the non-binary pronoun. Sometimes you might see a ye with an e at the end. Sometimes you might see a yex with an x in the end. And sometimes people use different alternatives as well. I know for a while there had been the use of the, I don't know what it's called, the at symbol, because it looks like an A and it has like an O around it. But people started using that a little bit less because that would still be pertaining to the binary, Latino, Latina. So by changing it to an X or an E, that was able to accommodate non-binary identities a little bit better. And the reason why it's good to know these different pronouns is because more and more folks are realizing their identities younger and sooner. People are coming out as non-binary. I know a lot of celebrities have recently come out as non-binary, and they are advocating for people to use they, them as a pronoun for them. And sometimes people have never met somebody who uses they, them pronouns, so they're not sure how to approach it. So, what we suggest is if it's something that's difficult for you to remember, it doesn't hurt in practicing it. Even like practicing if you think in your head, okay, so my friend is now using they, them pronouns, and you start utilizing that in your brain, you will be more likely to remember it when you do encounter your friend who started using that pronoun. And then with practice comes comfort. So you'll become more comfortable with it, as well as if you go on to meet anybody else in your everyday life who uses they, them pronouns. And it's really important because using somebody's correct pronouns is something that is actually life-saving for folks. If you know, maybe your child came out as transgender and they went from using he, him pronouns to she, her pronouns, by utilizing those she, her pronouns that your child now feels more comfortable with, that is a technique to reduce depression, anxiety, and overall even suicide. Because when people are misgendered, which means when you use the incorrect pronoun for them, that can really put people in a dark place. And in addition to pronouns, it's also a really easy way to tell people that you are an ally when you show that you know how to utilize pronouns. Maybe you're wearing your name tag and it has your pronouns on it. So if I wore my name tag and it said he, him on it, that shows people that this is my pronoun, I'm sharing my pronoun, and you're free to share your pronoun with me. So it might make it easier for people to come out and seek support from you. There are also something called neopronouns, and that's if people don't feel like he, him, she, her, or they, them for them. Examples of that include EM, Z here, along with, other spellings of iterations of like Z and here and M and im. These are called neopronouns because they are newer. Sometimes people see a new pronoun and then it just kind of clicks with them that that feels like the correct pronoun for them. And it's, while they're not seen in, everyday use in media, there are websites that help you practice those pronouns as well. There's sheets that have the different conjugations of those new pronouns. So if you're ever looking for a sheet like that or somebody to practice with, we are more than happy to meet with you and practice those with you. Because, we acknowledge that some of these newer pronouns, we haven't heard of, and therefore it takes a little bit of time and practice. But when you do show that you're making the time and effort, that really makes whoever's using that pronoun feel seen and valued. The neopronouns, yes, I can find those in a second. They are a handful of them, but I'll link a really good sheet that has the different pronouns on it. Awesome, thank you. And something else that we wanted to talk about was current youth issues and how you can support youth going through these different issues, because more often than not, LGBTQ youth are facing some kind of disparity, and these will show you how to address that. Oh, and I see that Fernando linked the different conjugations of the neopronouns. So if you ever need to see that sheet, you can just hit this link, bookmark it, print it out, whatever will make you feel comfortable and useful or comfortable in using these.
Thank you, Isamar. So here are some things that youth and just LGBTQ people in general go through. One, for example, is coming out is not a one-time thing. The first people that that LGBTQ people come out to are themselves. And it's not necessarily coming out as LGBTQ, but it's also coming out as undocumented or coming out with your mental health status, your HIV status. There's lots of other things that people come out at or have to feel like they need to come out. And also the way the family responds is really important. We recommend that you don't push anybody to come out to their family because we have no idea how the family is going to respond. And if the family responds in a negative way, that response pretty much affects the youth for life. For example, I'm gonna share my screen real quick, and I'm gonna show you all the Family Acceptance Project. We created this with youth, and we pretty much talk about what family rejection is, how that looks, how that impacts youth, and like here are like a few of the ways that can harm a youth, like telling them that they need to keep quiet, pressuring them to be more masculine, more feminine, more any other way, blocking access to events, to their friends, to their family. But on the other side of this, we also have family acceptance and what that looks like. Connecting them with LGBTQ connection. If you yourself are unsure about how to deal with that, you're more than welcome to come and talk to us. And we are more than happy to talk anything through. We also have an on-site counselor that you can definitely come see with your youth or the youth by themselves or just you by yourself and talk things through. And this definitely is expressed by supporting your child, expressing affection, connecting them, standing up for your youth, welcoming them. And so we also have this in Spanish for those of you that are interested. I'll have Isamar share that as well as the PDF that we just worked on. Yes, our counseling is free and available for all ages. There is no paper trail. And so, yes, that's all I have for those. And then Isamar.
Other really important youth issues and just general LGBTQ issues are that schools are still not generally safe for LGBTQ youth. I have a handful of students specifically who go to Sonoma Valley High School and also a couple that go to, I think it's Creekside, who have talked to me about how they experience bullying on campus. And, you know, I've talked to them about talking to school administrators because there are protections for LGBTQ students. If there is bullying on campus, that's supposed to be reported, dealt with, looked at, and yet our youth leaders, they are still hesitant to do so because they say that they've tried before and that nothing ended up happening because of it. So they're not feeling the support in schools. They're still experiencing harmful language on campus from other students. Sometimes teachers are just unaware of what's happening with other students. And, you know, once it's been brought up to the administrators, they don't always do something about it. So schools, even though they have these protections in place, are still not safe learning environments for all LGBTQ students. So that's why it's really important to just be educated about the different laws, the different rights that and protections that LGBTQ students have or are supposed to have on public school campuses. Other than schools, LGBTQ people also have unique body image struggles. A lot of people who are LGBTQ have an eating disorder, or people who are trans will have body dysphoria. So that means that the body image that they have is not aligned with what they feel inside. So for people who were born female, sometimes they will bind their chest to compress it to make it look smaller and flatter. But the proper garment for that is it's expensive. It's not always accessible to folks, or even if they can't afford it, they're not out to their parents, or they don't have supportive parents who will buy the garment for them. So what they might do is do unsafe practices such as using duct tape or ACE bandages, which is harmful because it makes it difficult to breathe. It can bruise their ribs and can also just end up causing permanent damage to their ribs. Similarly, people who were assigned male at birth sometimes try to inject their chest with things to make it look bigger. And it's actually really tragic because sometimes they will use, they use stuff that they find on the market if they don't have the insurance for it, or if they can't access it due to money or family reasons. And I think there was one case where a trans woman had actually been putting cement inside of her chest, and it ended up being really, really harmful, and she passed away because of it. So it's really important to know about resources that you can direct anybody who is experiencing, body struggles as an LGBTQ person. Maybe that means knowing counselors who are affirming of LGBTQ people, or supporting somebody in getting them signed up for Medi-Cal, or even being that person who's able to get the garment for them that they need. Another issue is LGBTQ youth face increased substance abuse risk. So being LGBTQ, people often feel depression, anxiety, isolation because there's stigmatization from society. Sometimes they are bullied in school for all these different reasons that Fern showed on the Family Acceptance Project as well. Maybe their families don't accept them. So oftentimes what people will do is find something to self-medicate so that they can cope with that. And oftentimes the way that people do, the thing that people do turn to is alcohol or drugs. Also, there's also some historic context to this as well. The first open and affirming spaces that LGBTQ people went to and were invited to were gay bars. So alcohol is present in a lot of like queer history and culture as well.
Are you open to taking questions from the council at this point?
Yes.
So just a reminder of process, council members, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions. Then we'll open it to public comment, and then you can have closing comments after we hear from the public. Isamar and Fernando, thank you so much for your presentation. It's so critically important that we give space to our diverse community, and very, very grateful that you took the time to be here with us today. So thank you so much. Really important conversation. Council members, are there any questions for Isamar or Fernando?
I'd just like to say thank you for this information. It was very eye-opening, and I thought I had everything, but yeah, there's some more pronouns I need to understand about. The neo stuff is fascinating, and in the English about it. Thank you for the information.
Of course, yeah.
Iris, is your hand up?
Yes. Yes, I wanted to thank you both. It's great information, and the change I've seen over the course of my lifetime in terms of people coming out is it's tremendous, really, from what it started as. But you know, as you've pointed out, it's always evolving. And I was looking at all the definitions and thinking, I bet these are going to change. You know, once, you know, they'll just keep changing as hopefully acceptance grows of people making, in a sense, the not standard issue definitions for themselves in their lives. And I'm glad, I'm really glad that young people are coming out sooner, but I also recognize that it's that's a difficulty in itself. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm calling on me. So I love the statement that the suggestion you made about what does that mean to you? I think that's such an important question to ask someone, is what does that mean to you? So I just really thank you for those words. That's going to be really helpful to me. So my question is, I'm wondering, if you don't get back into the schools or you're not working, what capacity is there? Can you have a greater presence in the Valley? I'm wondering what that might look like.
Yeah. Isamar, you want to answer that?
Yes, we are definitely intending to continue doing, you know, services for folks at least once a month in the Valley. We're not entirely sure what capacity that looks like right now, but, you know, we're working on figuring that out.
We will be training the Boys and Girls Club staff there in Sonoma Valley next month. I think it's on August 10th. So we're very excited to be doing that and partnering with them. So our presence will still be there.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Are there any, I'm going to move to public comment unless there are questions from the council members. Okay, Karina, should we go to public comment?
Sure. Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario o pregunta, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano en este momento. Members of the public, please use the raise hand feature to make a public comment or ask a question. There is one in the audience. 2 minutes, Chair Iturri?
Yes.
Okay. Please state your name. Por favor, diga su nombre para el récord público. Adelante, Mario.
Mario Castillo. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Welcome to the new board members. Wish they had stated more about how they were appointed. Anyhow, looking forward to working with all of you. And in terms of the presentation, I'm glad this presentation is happening. My comment, concern is really, while I appreciate all the general information that is presented, I'm sure a lot of this information may be new to some of you, yet it shouldn't be new information to a lot of you, well-educated leaders of our community. And I also wanna specifically address the issue here in the Valley. And the fact of, I will always say, that we are very much isolated out here. A lot of the services are in the county. And while there is some presence, there is not enough. And I'm also concerned about what type of, the gap between the education that has to happen for our Latinx community, specifically parents, macho, culturally speaking men working on the vineyards. A lot of that, a lot of abuse, a lot of stigma, a lot of discrimination happens. And I just don't hear enough of work being done around there. So while I applaud and appreciate you guys having this presentation, I think that we are very much far from where we need to be, and it's just more work needs to happen. I mean, again, I'm the first one to be a critic, and then also always the first one to raise my hand to offer my support. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mario.
I don't see any more raised hands in the public.
Okay, I think Fernando would like to respond.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That was Mario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mario. We have a Spanish 4-hour training that we can definitely bring to the Valley. And if you want to reach out to me or Isamar, my email is Fernando@LGBTQ Connection, and Isamar is Isamar@LGBTQ Connection. We would love to work with you on bringing that Spanish training to it we can bring it for free to Sonoma Valley if we have to, and that I would love to help move things forward with you.
You have done a training at El Verano for the parents at El Verano, and I think this would be a great topic for charla, perhaps, Karina. Wouldn't it be, you have a wide audience there, so there are a couple of options. I think I agree. We need a lot more light on this.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just say that we have discussed that with Isamar. We are looking into that in future agendas. So yeah.
Thank you. We have final comments from council members. If there's anything you want to add as we close this topic. Avram?
Yeah, I just want to thank you both, like the other council members, for presenting the materials. We can always learn. I think I thought I knew a lot about the LGBTQ community, but I found there were terms I wasn't aware of, and that helps me. Actually, I'm kind of proud of our Valley. There's an event that happens every year, which is out in the vineyard or vineyards, and I think it gets a lot of public awareness, and I think hopefully it creates more understanding. And what I'm hoping through your organization, et cetera, that there are more public activities so people become more aware and become more comfortable. A lot of it is around fear, and if that can be diminished, it will go a long way to making everybody feel more comfortable. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Avram. So we'll close this topic. Isamar and Fernando, thank you again very much for your time and your information this evening. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to further conversation with you, particularly for our Latinx community.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Take care, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Our next item is Permit Sonoma. We'll do Permit Sonoma, and then we'll take a break, and then move on to the last two agenda items after that. So Permit Sonoma, we have Gary and Lisa, and I hope I've got that correct.
Just one update, Chair Iturri. Lisa had a family emergency, so her presentation will not be happening tonight.
Okay.
She does ask if there are any individuals who want to see that presentation. They can request it to me or directly to Lisa. Her email is lisa, lisa.hulette@sonoma-county.org. She does apologize, but did have to run for a family emergency. But we do have Gary here tonight.
Great.
And these are two different presentations, both from Permit Sonoma.
Okay. Well, Gary, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, council members. I almost feel like it's trivial to discuss vacation rentals after that presentation, but that's what I'm here to discuss, the county's update of the vacation rental program. I'm the lead planner on the project. Let me share my screen here. We've got a fairly short presentation, but I want to emphasize that we want this to be a listening session. I'll give an overview of what the county is planning on doing, but we want to hear from the community. What does the community want us to do with this plan? Because we realize that one size fits all has created a lot of problems with our policies on vacation rentals, and would like to tailor policies for specific areas and communities. So let me advanced portion of screen, and gotta just adjust this slightly. Okay, is that clear for everybody? Is that adequate resolution? I've only got one screen, so I'm sharing a portion of it. Just some quick background on vacation rentals in general, so that everybody understands what they are. It's transient rental of a home or a room in a home for 30 days or less. And there's approximately 1,900 vacation rentals in the county. We know of an additional, really approximately 500 unpermitted rentals. And on top of that, in the coastal zone, because the Coastal Act sees vacation rentals as a public access component, we cannot regulate vacation rentals out there at this point in time. So there's 581 rentals out there that pay transient occupancy tax, but don't operate under permits. We do this program in coordination with the Sonoma County Tax Collector's Office. This is important to understand. There's two parts to this. There's the regulatory part and there's the tax part. So we have one full-time person who works in both offices that manages the program. Our existing policy is to regulate by land use, and we're the only county that we think in the state that uses this method, and it's because there's no such thing as a business license in unincorporated Sonoma County. And this is another thing that a lot of people aren't aware of. For any business, if you're in the unincorporated county, there is no such thing as a business license. So the common tool to regulate something like use of your home as a vacation rental isn't available to Sonoma County at this point in time. We also have attempted, because we use this sort of clunky method of a zoning permit to permit vacation rentals. We have a land use tool called the X zone. So there's an exclusion area, mostly in the northern part of the valley. And in fact, it's pretty much only in the first district that this tool has been used. There's almost no exclusion zones outside of the first district. And a problem that we've seen with that is there is a tendency for that to push concentration of vacation rentals into other communities or neighborhoods that don't have this exclusion zone. It's just basic supply and demand going on there. And we've seen some of the neighborhoods in the Springs area really suffer from overconcentration because of that. And this next map will show two things. It shows where our concentrations are and also where they are relative to our fire perimeters. And this is an important part of our regulation. The two hotspots are down here in the valley, and even higher concentration is up here in Guerneville. Most of the areas around this concentration near El Verano are X zones. So this is forcing the vacation rentals into these neighborhoods. Currently, there is a prohibition on vacation rentals in the burn areas. So those those extend for actually kind of a frightening part of the county. This is all the fires that we've had since 2017 laid on top of each other. And then I've got the expiration dates of the urgency ordinances that prevents vacation rentals from being permitted in those areas. And this, for us at Permit Sonoma, the clock is running. We've got to come up with a solution before these moratoriums expire. We've also done an urgency ordinance, and it's applies just to 2 specific areas at this point. Initially, it was all of District 1 and all of District 5. And it is now the Theodore Lane area in the valley, and some specific areas in the lower Russian River. The purpose of the cap is so that a bad situation won't continue to get worse. So there is a limit to how many rentals can operate there, and that was set at what the number was on August 6th of 2020. So most of these areas are over that limit, so there won't be any new permits issued there. But once again, there's a real urgency to solving this problem, because there are a number of areas where vacation rentals can create conflicts in neighborhoods. More importantly, vacation rentals can impact the availability of housing. And this is a big thing that the board has directed us to look into. We had a workshop with the board on September 20th, and this is what we came away with. Is the board really felt that a business license is the right tool, that they want to see a transition away from land use permits and issue business licenses. And they also want to see us separate the performance standards. And what a performance standard is how many people can be in the house, how loud can things be at the house, how you have to maintain the property, and more importantly, having a property manager and having a 24/7 method for contacting the property manager. And that's one thing that we don't have right now, and it causes a lot of frustration countywide, not just in the valley, but countywide. People are we're hearing this loud and clear, that nobody's being responsive to complaints, because usually the disruptions occur at night and on weekends, and there's nobody at code enforcement to respond. So we are working with a couple of providers we have for other technology at the county, that one of them is doing this program right now, Marin, and it's been very successful, where there's just a number you call in and they take care of the enforcement, and they get back to you within 30 minutes on how the problem was resolved or not resolved. And then we have a database of violations, and then it lets us weed out the people who are disrupting neighborhoods. The other part, though, is what's it doing to our housing stock? What's it doing to neighborhood character? And that's probably more important to a lot of people. And we have contracted with Dr. Robert Eiler at Sonoma State to do, over the next month, he's going to be doing an economic study that is very fine grained. We've done big countywide ones, and it hasn't yielded any real actionable information that lets us develop focused policies for specific areas, because this is shocking to anybody here, but Sea Ranch is different than the Springs, and we should have different standards for both of those areas. So we're hoping that Dr. Eiler is going to give us the insight that we need to develop these policies and these programs in specific areas. We just had the workshop last week at the board, so this slide has old news on it. The board also told us to go out to all the MACs and also do some public workshops, and come back to the board on the 19th of October with some recommendations on how to proceed, and wanted to be clear. The direction that we got is to be very focused on community engagement here, and to make sure that we're hearing from the community. And this is the first outreach that we've done since the board gave us that direction last week. So, and we're happy to come back as many times as it takes to the Springs and conduct workshops or drill down deeper on certain topics that are specific to your neighborhoods and to your community. But it is important to remember that we really have until August 6th of 2022 to complete all this work, or we're going to go back to the situation we have now that really seems to be creating a lot of conflict in neighborhoods. It's also creating a lot of uncertainty for people who want to rent their house because they're just not getting consistent direction on what the performance standards are, where they can be located. There's a lot of frustration on both sides. So this is just a big overview of where we are in the direction we've gotten from the board. And really, I'm here to listen to you. I want to hear specific concerns in the community, and maybe things you'd like to come back to you with in a future workshop where we can really focus on your concerns. And want to leave you with, this is my contact information. This is my email. Feel free to email me anytime. Like I said, I'm project lead on the vacation rental program. So please get a hold of me. We want to do this right, and doing it right means community engagement and effective community engagement. So that's what I have, and I'm really here to answer questions and to listen. Let me stop the share. There. Okay.
Thank you, Gary. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot from this group. So
I hope so. I want to.
So do you have anything else to share before we go to questions from council?
No, that's it currently.
Thank you, Gary. So are there questions from the council members, and then we'll move to public comment?
Chair Terry, if I may, just real quick, Gary did provide the presentation in Spanish, so I'd like to announce that as well. And all these presentations will be available for the public to view at a later time. Solo les quiero avisar que esta presentación también está proporcionada en español. Si usted desea una copia, con toda confianza puede contactarme a mí, karina.garcia@sonoma-county, COUNTY.org. Gracias.
Thank you, Karina. I think I see Hannah and then Ray.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Gary, for being here. The first thing I think that would be really useful for us is data on exactly how many vacation rentals there are in our area. I've seen some stunning facts or numbers quoted for the city of Sonoma, saying that there's a very high proportion of homes that are vacation rentals, but I haven't been able to fact check them. So I'd like to start with facts and knowing how this is affecting our available housing stock. The second thing was, you discussed someone addressing noise problems, but my understanding is we don't have a noise ordinance in Sonoma County. So it seems like we would need a noise ordinance if we were going to maintain standards for noise levels at vacation rentals. It would probably apply to everyone, I would assume. And then my final question is, if you could just tell me, my understanding was that you can still Airbnb your house in in our area of the Springs, the unincorporated Sonoma County, if you do a hosted rental where you stay in your home and rent out a bedroom that's attached. Could you confirm or deny or just tell me the truth? Thanks.
I will tell you the truth. I mean, hopefully that's all I'm going to tell you this whole session is the truth. Hosted rentals, that is renting one room out in your house, are permitted everywhere in the county, and we actually receive almost zero complaints on hosted rentals. So it's a different permit too. It's a different program, but that program has actually been quite successful. And I think if you've got a guest in your house, it's going to be easy to maintain control over how people are behaving. With regard to noise, it's important to understand that while we don't have a noise ordinance, we have a general plan noise standard, and that is applied to any what's called a discretionary permit that we issue. So if you get a use permit to operate a gas station, those noise standards apply. If you get, and it also applies in the case of performance standards for either business license or the zoning permit system that we use right now. So you do have to follow the standards that are in the general plan, which are actually fairly strict. I don't know how familiar everyone is with noise measurements, but it's 45 decibels at night, which is quieter than a car driving by on the street. So, and we have a little bit of a problem enforcing that. And so I'm answering your questions backwards. I realize I just forgot the first part of your question, which was.
I was just wondering if we could start, I would really like to know the data on how many homes are being used currently as vacation rentals, because someone wrote a letter to the editor specifically about Sonoma City, and I might be misremembering her percentage, but she said something like 50% of homes in one area were vacation rentals, and that's stunning.
Okay,
so if we could get data.
Yeah,
just
no,
data.
that data exists, and it's relatively hard data simply because it changes slightly from day to day. I mean, some people abandon their permits, new permits are issued, and that's actually why I put approximately 1,900 is we tend to get beat up. If I tell you the number that we pulled off of our records this afternoon before the hearing, by tomorrow that might be inaccurate, and people say the county's lying to us. It's instead of 1,857, which is I think what it was, there's 1,861 because we approved to the next day.
Sorry, but could we see it as a percentage?
No, and we did that as part of our urgency ordinance. We analyzed neighborhood by neighborhood, county-wide, and with the stunning exception of the Theodore Lane Falcon neighborhood in the Springs, the high concentration areas we're seeing are between 10 and 14% of the homes are being rented. Theodore Lane is close to 50%. It's 43%, and it's an anomaly. It's much worse than anywhere else in the county, but there's nowhere that is 50%. That's I'd say even in areas like the Sea Ranch where everything is second homes, and we have trouble getting data there because, of course, since we're not issuing permits, we can't pull our permit history. We pull TOT records and kind of back into the information.
So I think what I'm hearing is that a future presentation, we would like to know how many homes in the neighborhoods in the Springs are vacation rentals. And I'm sure that's going to take some time to pull. So I'm going to move on to Ray and then Avram, but perhaps in a future presentation, Gary, you could come back with that information for us, because I'm absolutely very curious about that.
Oh, and we have the numbers already. We've got the mapping. So it's just a matter of showing it.
Great.
It's easy.
Okay, that's great. Okay, it's going to get harder. Just wait.
I know it's going to get harder.
Ray and then Avram.
So I'm super curious how the business license model will work better than the I'm not saying it's working great, the existing system, to eliminate situations like Theodore Lane. And how are we going? You say 10 to 14% of our housing stock is now up for rent, or short-term rent, not just rentals, but short-term rentals. This is unsustainable, and yet we have huge housing crisis. This sounds like a bad choice of how to do business. We're compensating for lack of hotel rooms by building, by allowing residential units to become hotel rooms. We want tourists, encourage hotel rooms. I don't want the tourists in my neighborhood, honestly. They're not allowed. And when I go up the road into Theodore, but they're here, they're down the road, I see them. But I go up to Theodore, it is just outrageous. That's criminal. And I can't believe that we're gonna limit it at 11. I'm really passionate about this. I think it's horrible what's going on. And I want to know, how is this going to make it better with a business license?
Okay, well, there's two parts of that answer, and the first one is a clarification on percentage. Those percentages are the maximum we're seeing in those areas of high concentration. That's not the county-wide number is down around 1 or 2%. It's probably closer to 1%. Over 10% is it's unusual, but it seems like this isn't linear. Either there's areas where there's a handful, a smattering of vacation rentals and they're invisible. And then suddenly you go into a neighborhood like Theodore or Gernwood Park on the Russian River, and it's off the chart. So it's not, we've observed this through our data collection. It's not linear. It's peaks and valleys throughout the county. The business license has one big advantage over a zoning permit in that our enforcement tools are more flexible and more immediate than they are with a zoning permit. Revocation is very easy to do with a business license. It's enormously ponderous with a zoning permit. We're gonna have to take them to the Board of Zoning Adjustments, maybe the Board of Supervisors, and invest probably a dozen staff hours in writing the staff reports, doing the presentations, and just going through the process, because our administrative procedures are the same as revoking a use permit for a winery. I mean, so it's the wrong tool for the job. The other thing you can't do with a zoning permit is fines, and you can do a fine with a zoning permit. So we've got a lot more enforcement tools that are a lot more immediate. So in terms of I'm just saying this in terms of regulating behavior, it's a more flexible tool. And it's why every other jurisdiction except for Sonoma County regulates through a business license. So far as the impact on housing, this is why we have hired Dr. Eiler to do the study. We need to identify, because we can't, everything needs to be data driven. To enact regulations, they can't be arbitrary, they have to be based on information. And we do see there's a big difference between Sea Ranch, where those houses are not available for rent anyway. They're people's part-time homes, compared to the Springs, where you're displacing families out of their houses. Very, very different situations here. And that's the study that we're doing. I mean, that's what we're going to do to inform our future policy. The current situation, bad as it is, we do have to recognize the right to due process. And so it's very difficult to retroactively just revoke a zoning permit in a certain area.
So follow on, how do we, so with the zoning, we can, give it some appropriateness, we can say it needs to be zoned this, it needs to have these setbacks and these, physical characteristics that we have decided as a society that, or as a community that makes it appropriate for a vacation rental. How does the business license address that?
Those would be the parameters that would be in the ordinance that you'd have to meet to have the business license issued. I mean, it isn't automatic. It could be regulated by, there's X number of licenses in a certain area, kind of like a taxi medallion. We decide, there's a decision made on what the carrying capacity is for vacation rentals in a certain neighborhood. And once again, based on on the character. And that's it. So that's one tool that'd be in the toolbox, is there'd be X number available and have at it. The other one is proximity.
Would that push them into commercial uses maybe? Would that allow them to use a commercial use for that instead of being focused on the residential?
Well, then it would be just a bed and breakfast, and we already have regulations for that.
Okay.
At any time, somebody could open a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to Avram.
Okay.
And give him the time to ask a question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay, Ray. I know it's an important topic. I get it.
It is, and thank you for your input.
Yeah, Gary, thank you for being here. This is a very controversial subject. I may be on the other side of the street of some folks because I'm in real estate. And I'll say that right up front. I think I have a much clearer view of vacation rentals. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, which I'd like to clarify. And if you could sort of endorse what I'm saying, it may be helpful to our members. First of all, vacation rentals in the Springs have virtually been outlawed. There are no new permits allowed. There haven't been for several years. I think it goes back at least 2, it may even be 3 years, Gary. You can do that. The Theodore Lane is, people go, oh my God, what happened? Well, From my understanding, that was a mistake. When boundaries were drawn, somehow Theodore Lane was sort of left off of the exclusion list, which it should have been included on. So people knew that, and I think it became that one little tiny area where people could get a vacation rental permit. So I call that an anomaly. And so I want my members to understand there are virtually no places in the Springs where you can get a vacation rental permit now. Zero. As far as the city of Sonoma, years ago, the city of Sonoma has outlawed vacation rentals. I don't know where that 50% number came from. It's just, it shouldn't, I'd like to see that because I don't know any vacation rentals in the city of Sonoma. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of older exceptions, but very, very few. So I think it's important that we have more definitions. And I want to say one thing about enforcement. From my understanding, and I heard this number just the other day, that there's only been one vacation permit ever taken away. And I have to say, we came to this situation because of very poor enforcement. There was terrible property management at the beginning when vacation rentals started. And the enforcement with those bad actors led to actually the Springs being the first area to be excluded. So I want people in the Springs to know that there are no vacation permits here. I think what we have to do as a county is actually make some sense, because as you said, Gary, the people at Sea Ranch, these are all second homes. So they're not going to be even included in the rental market. And if they were included, the rents would be astronomically high and wouldn't be accessible to the majority of the people in Sonoma County.
So Ram, do you have a question for Gary?
No, I do have a question. I just wanted to clarify some of the things that people said. My question I would like to know is how much money in terms of revenue is generated from vacation rentals with the TOT tax?
The amount generated right now is kind of I think an inaccurate number because of COVID. So I think it's better to look back a couple of years, and and also it is very difficult for us to parse out similar uses like bed and breakfast because we just get a data dump from the tax assessor. It's probably in the range of $8 to $10 million per year countywide.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a rough, like I said, it's a rough range, and our data since COVID is very inaccurate. I mean, it's not representative of what's going on. And it is true that the X zone does cover most of the Springs area. However, Theodore Lane is more of a mistake in zoning, not the X zone,
mm-hmm.
but there's criteria for applying the X zone. And unfortunately, Theodore is zoned rural residential, and everything around it is zoned low density residential, which I won't get into the nuances of our zoning code, but when we do something like that, we have to have rational criteria. We can't just say, oh, and the finger of the planner went around here because we forgot it. So it didn't meet the criteria because it was rural residential, and that's really unfortunate. And I don't know why it has different zoning than the areas to the south and to the west, but it does.
Gary, I think we're going to ask, we want to get to public comment, and I think we're going to ask you to come back, and we're going to have some I think we're going to craft some very detailed questions that we've got, because I think this could take up probably an entire meeting. So I want to be mindful that we've got other presenters, and Iris, I'll give you a chance, and then I'm going to move to public comment. So Iris.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gary. So you can, Avram is saying that the entire Springs is covered with the X zone, and apparently that's not true. Is that a yes or no?
It is not true that the entire Springs area is covered, but most of it is.
Okay. The other thing is, if you know how many vacation rentals there are and can express it as a percentage, then I'm assuming that you know how many households or how many houses residences there are in the Springs. And I'm very interested in that information because it seems to be impossible to get. And the other thing is I feel passionately about this. The Springs area has traditionally been and still really is an area for people, for low-income people to live in. And Sonoma, the city of Sonoma is not generally. And we need the houses that are represented by those vacation rentals for affordable housing for people. And what I saw in 2008 and 2009 was people swooping in and buying houses for second homes and vacation rentals. And it took the guts out of our community. And
so, thank you, Iris. So I also want to just remind people to be very mindful. Jordy is translating every single word that we say, every single word. And I gotta say that guy's probably tired. I've translated before and it's exhausting. So please be mindful of the words that you're using and how many of them you're using when you're speaking. So thank you. Jim, or go ahead, Karina, you wanna do public comment now?
Members of the public who wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature. I do see hands raised. A los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario, por favor de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano para hacer su comentario. Se les otorgará el permiso. I'm going to say them in the order that I saw them show up. Jim, Gina, Fred, and Nick. Please remember to state your name for the public record. And it's 2 minutes, Chair Iturri.
2 minutes.
Jim, go ahead. Jim?
Unmute. He's muted.
You should see a prompt on your end, Jim, to unmute. I'm going to go ahead and move.
Karina, you're muted.
I'm going to go to Gina, and then we're going to try Jim again. Gina, go ahead.
I am muted. Well, I want to give you a little background. I only have 2 minutes. I came to make a suggestion about enforcement, but I have been very engaged with this issue. I think that there's a lot of background that you don't have. I'm going to go back for a second. There tends to get to be a lot of confusion between the city of Sonoma and outside the city limits in the Springs, because I was on the city's planning commission and wrote the city's first vacation rental ordinance in the early 2000s, part of that process. The difference between the city of Sonoma and what happened out in the county is the city leaders foresaw the problem. They knew what would happen if they didn't greatly limit vacation rentals. They knew what would happen to their housing stock in the city of Sonoma. That didn't happen in the county. It's part of the systemic problem of when we don't have our own control. We don't have ability to see our problems and get to address them because we're waiting for people in Santa Rosa who really don't give a darn and are slow to recognize problems because, hey, maybe it doesn't impact them. So 4, 5, 6 years ago now, I sat in a lot of Board of Supervisors meetings when they finally started dealing with the vacation rental problem in the unincorporated area. The barn door at that point was open wide. We already had hundreds of houses that got converted. So then the X zone came about. The exclusion zone was the compromise to say we've got over concentration, we've lost a lot of housing. We're going to put an X zone over neighborhoods like mine. I'm living in the Springs. I'm Gina Kuklis. Maybe I forgot to say my name. I've been a Springs resident and activist for over 30 years. I've lived in the Valley 34 years. So I sat in a lot of Board of Supervisors meetings several years ago now when they finally addressed this issue, but the barn door was open. So my suggestion now we have a lot of housing stock we already lost. They're permitted. The illegal ones, if you're operating without a permit, shut them down. Don't give them a permit. They're done. They're done.
My apologies. That is your time, Gina. Thank
Wait,
you.
can I, well, let me please, because I gave some background. What I wanted to say is, I think a way to deal with enforcement, because the real problem now is enforcement. It's the noise on the weekends. I have to license my dog every 2 years to pay. The dog fee helps pay animal control. So if vacation rental owners every year or maybe every other year had to pay a relicensing fee, and that fee was then used to pay for the enforcement and pay for weekend enforcement and pay for the system that Gary was talking about. So that was my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred, go ahead, unmute and state your name and your comment.
Yeah, my name is Fred Allbach, and my family has been in North America since 1685, so I've got some great legitimacy for what I'm saying here. I'd like to say, on one hand, the county and the city are pushing tourism and high-end tourism, and so on the one hand, it creates this really high demand and high real estate values and puts a premium on these spaces, and so the county and the city are, in essence, creating this problem through their own marketing efforts there. And so that's on the one hand. So the county needs to be aware that in some ways they're causing the problem here by putting premium on real estate values. And I think also the Board of Supervisors favors landlords over tenants. And rent controls have not been passed. I would like to see the Board of Supervisors consider Ellis Act reform, close loopholes in being able to evict tenants, and have more tenants' rights and protections so that they wouldn't be able to be turned out and have these places turned into vacation rentals. And so the market seems to always find a workaround, Picasso, vacation rentals, whatever it will be next. So I think that the county needs to tighten the noose on things like Picasso and keep the housing stock for housing. And I agree with Ray that, you know, more hotels. And in that regard, do stuff to defeat the NIMBYs. Do CEQA streamlining by right for hotels so that you can actually get some hotels and get some stuff going without having it tied up in CEQA stalling by NIMBYs for 10 years or 15 years like a hotel in downtown Sonoma. So that's generally my comments here is you know, more socialism.
Thank you, Fred.
Nick, I believe we have Jim back here, and then we will go to Nick. Jim, please state your name, make your comment.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm having trouble with the whole webinar thing, so I missed some of the presentation and also the slides from Gary. Thank you, Gary. I wonder, August 8th of 2022 or 2022, this should all be completed. Sounds like. Can you still hear me?
Yes, if that is your question and only question, then we can move on.
I just wonder, are you going to get any help from the corporate interests in developing this permit process?
Thank you, Jim. We will go on to the next question, and then we will allow Gary to respond if that is the end of your comment.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Nick, go ahead.
Yes, in part of your presentation, you began to relate a potential permitting process to taxi medallions. And we all know what happened to standard taxis and taxi medallions with Uber and Lyft. So I'm curious, I'll leave an open-ended question. How do we prevent this act now and ask for forgiveness later model with somebody like Airbnb? Thank you.
I see no more raised hands. Gary will give you an opportunity to answer those questions, and then we'll have closing comments from council, and we will definitely be inviting you back.
Okay, well, just quick answer to the taxi medallion analogy is the big difference is Airbnb is subject to our regulations as well. This would be like as if Uber and Lyft had to get taxi medallions anyway, that they couldn't operate without them. So it's a very different regulatory situation. I mean, maybe that was an unfortunate analogy. Think of it like liquor licenses within a city. There often is a fixed number of them. There's not an infinite number, but every vacation rental must get a permit. There's no way around that. The Board of Supervisors has provided us with adequate resources. They have been taking this pretty seriously. I think we'll get it done before 2022. I really hope that we will. We'll probably roll this out sequentially too. There's a lot of moving parts to this program, so we're going to do it as we can. The most important thing is switching to a permitting program that's a little bit easier to enforce. I believe there's also a question about charging. There's a $224 per year permit renewal fee. It's actually called a monitoring fee. So there is an annual fee associated with the permit already that will be used to support an enforcement program. So that's already part of the program. I think, was that everyone's questions, except that come back with a lot more information? Yes, we will.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll come back to the council for any closing comments. Avram?
Just to reiterate, Gary, again, thanks for being here. If you could give us the percentage of homes that are still eligible or properties eligible for vacation rentals in terms of from the total number, that would be great. Thank you.
Is there anything else that council would like to see Gary come back with? Hannah, did yours get captured?
I mean, I just would like to see data for our very specific area, you know, number of homes total, number of homes currently permitted, and the number of permits that are, you know, currently being used, I guess. Thank you.
Ray, did you have anything you wanted to see that didn't get?
I'm curious how we transition, you know, if you know, there's 11 homes up on, you know, whatchamacallit, that want to transition to this new one. How do they all apply? You know, how does this work? How does this new system go into place?
Okay, Iris or Jesus, or I just want to make sure I'm giving everybody space. Joanne, Mari Carmen.
I think Ray's question is very good. How would we see change from this?
Okay. All right. So we will close this topic. Gary, thank you so much for coming. And I hope we were helpful as your first test case.
No, thank you so much for your input. It is really very, very helpful.
Yeah, we're super affected by it. So we appreciate you coming. We are going to take a break here to give Jordy some time to catch his breath. It is 8:28. We'll break for, we'll come back at 8:40. So we've got 12 minutes. Thank you all very much. Have a quick break and we'll see you in 12 minutes. Have a break.
Jordy says no.
Poor Jordy. Jordy, we are going to try and use less words. Okay. Again, thank you to everyone who's here and all the presenters. Really appreciate it, and the audience who's sticking with us. We're going to move on to another hot topic, water. We have Barry, and I wrote it down phonetically, Perot-At. Oh, I hope I said that right, and I apologize if I did not. Here from the Water Agency, and to talk to us about our water situation. Thank you both. And Parastou, can you say your name for us correctly?
Sure, Parastou.
Parastou, thank you.
Yeah, it's not really about water, it's actually for sanitation district.
My apologies, my agenda says water.
Oh,
That's the other end of water.
Yeah, right. Okay, Karina, could you please bring up the presentation? Thank you.
Give me a second.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chair Iturri. My name is Parastou Hooshialsadat, and I'm working in the Engineering and Resource Planning Division of Sonoma Water. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. As you know, Sonoma Valley County Sanitation District, or SVCSD, serves more than 11,000 parcels in Sonoma Valley and has three primary infrastructure elements: sewer collection system, wastewater treatment plant, and reclamation facilities. Today, my colleagues and I are going to talk about what district is planning to eliminate damage to its facilities because of natural hazards, and then solicit your input. I apologize, I need to turn off my video because I don't have a very great internet connection.
And before you continue, I just want to make sure what screen you guys can see.
I see the presented screen. It's not a full screen. You can go to the slideshow.
I don't know why it's giving me two screens on my end. Do you guys see a split screen?
We see half the slide now. It's on it.
That's I apologize. Let's see.
That's good. There we go.
There. Okay.
Yeah, you could go to the next slide.
Okay.
Thank you. So preparing a local hazard mitigation plan, or LHMP, helps us to apply for FEMA grant for our projects. And in this presentation, I'll explain LHMP purpose and content, the background of the plan, what we are currently doing, what is our public outreach strategy, and then we'll answer any questions you might have. Next slide, please. So the Water Agency prepared its first LHMP in 2008 and updated that in 2012. One of the hazard mitigation actions identified in Water Agency's 2012 LHMP includes development of a multi-hazard vulnerability assessment of each sanitation district managed and operated by the Water Agency, including Sonoma Valley County Sanitation District. And in 2016, the SVCSD prepared its own LHMP. LHMP includes different chapters. The beginning chapters describes district's assets, as well as an overview of potential hazards and vulnerability assessment of district infrastructures to natural hazards. Then LHMP talks about mitigation goals and objectives and actions, which is the main focus of the plan. And final chapters present LHMP implementation strategies and maintenance. We have implemented several projects in Sonoma Valley identified in the 2016 LHMP. For example, replacing trunk sewer near Maxwell Park is one of them. So FEMA requires us to update LHMP every 5 years so that we are able to apply for any grant program for the projects that are identified in LHMP. And we are due to update our plan this year. Next slide, please. So the purpose of LHMP is to identify risks posed by natural disaster and incorporates strategies to minimize damage from those disasters. Natural hazards identified in Sonoma Valley are earthquakes, flooding, fire, and landslides. And other hazards such as tornadoes and hurricanes are low risk in this area. The district has previously focused on seismic and flood hazards, and while seismic is still the most critical hazard in the region, this time we are having more emphasis on recent wildfire hazard as well as climate changes. Next slide, please. So we have defined 4 goals in this current LHMP. So the first goal is the increase in our organizational efficiencies and effectiveness when responding to natural disasters. Goal 2 is to increase the reliability of the wastewater treatment plant facility and during and after natural disasters. Goal 3 is to increase reliability of the wastewater collection system, basically pipelines and manholes and lift stations, to make sure that we have conveyance capacity during and after natural disasters. And the goal number 4 is basically increasing the reliability of the recycled water system and reclamation ponds. And each goal has several objectives and mitigation actions to reduce the effects of each hazard. Next slide, please. So the key factors that are considered in the development of mitigation actions and defining projects includes the significance of impact. For example, a potential break along the trunk main, which serves the whole SVCSD, would have a more significant impact, like number of people affected and risk to public health and safety, than compared to a smaller diameter collection pipe serving a limited area. The second factor is likelihood of failure. For example, more damage is likely to occur to the pipes in the areas of very high liquefaction potential, like near creeks, compared to a moderate liquefaction area, those that are far from waterways. And the other factor is the cost to implement a project. So some mitigation actions are low cost to implement, but they could increase the overall benefit cost assessment. For example, anchorage of a critical equipment at the treatment plant considered a high priority because of the relatively low cost of installing anchors compared to the overall benefit that we would get from that retrofit. We have identified 2 tiers for projects. So tier 1 actions are those that provide the highest cost benefit, and once implemented will result in substantial improvement in the overall reliability of the system. And then we have like 2 categories in this tier: priority A and priority B. Priority A actions or projects include those actions that were estimated to have potential to be initiated or even completed within the 5-year life of the plan. And priority B consists of those actions for which the availability of resources or opportunity are not likely with the 5-year plan life. And then we also have like a 2nd tier actions or projects that are considered, desirable and will further enhance the system reliability once the 1st tier objectives are achieved. The tier 2 actions include all remaining projects that the benefit cost assessments are below the tier 1 threshold. Next slide, please. In terms of our process, what we have done so far, we had a federally compliant RFP to hire a consultant, outside consultant, and then we received 3 proposals in December of 2020. We selected Infraterra based on their technical expertise and experience with the local hazard mitigation plans. The intent of hiring a consultant is to have more technical support to define mitigation actions and projects. And as I mentioned earlier, the current district, currently in the last 5 years or since last LHMP, the district experienced 2 major fires. The 2021 LHMP update focuses on vulnerability analysis of seismic, flood, and fire hazards, and public safety power shutoffs when we have fire weather conditions. And then hazards related to climate change, such as sea level rise, additional infiltration into sewer system, and subsequent additional flows to the treatment plant and reclamation facilities are also being assessed. We are finalizing different chapters of LHMP now. Our plan is to have the whole document available for public review in September. The 2016 LHMP didn't have a public survey. We decided to add one to this 2021 LHMP update to make sure that we have more community engagement. Next slide, please. I am going to ask Barry Dugan to talk about opportunities for public participation.
Thank you, Parastou, and thank you, members of the commission. I'm Barry Dugan. I work in the Community and Government Affairs section at Sonoma Water, and I've been assisting the team with the public outreach process. My colleague, Andrea Rodriguez, who has another meeting tonight, has been leading this effort. I've done a number of these LHMPs, and quite honestly, there's not as much interest in LHMPs as there is in vacation rentals. But this is a really important process and an important topic. And to your question, Chair Iturri, we would be glad to come back and talk to you about water anytime. We've done dozens of presentations in the last 3 to 4 months to various groups, so we're happy to do that. So we've done, as Parastou mentioned, we used a survey this time for the first time and got a pretty good response. I really don't remember the numbers, but for the first time, I think it was effective. We've publicized the LHMP process using our e-newsletter, which has several thousand on our list, several thousand recipients. We've used our social media platforms to advertise, to push word out about this. Our annual Prop 218 newsletter, which goes along with the annual rate adjustment, we also included an article about the LHMP in that publication. And we have information on our website, which is posted here. So the public outreach portion of this effort is required by FEMA, but we have made every effort to go above and beyond just checking the box. And again, to be quite honest, it's a topic that doesn't garner a lot of interest because it's one of those things you really don't think about until a disaster happens. But I think the importance of this process is really underscored by the fact that we've received a number of FEMA grants and have done a number of mitigation projects that have increased the safety and the reliability of our system. So we welcome your public comments. As Parastou said, September is when we will be opening the public comment period, and we'll do more outreach at that time to try and solicit some input on the draft plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, any additional question can be directed to me or through Sonoma Water website. Thank you for your time.
Are you willing to take questions now from council and public comment?
Oh, sure.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Are there questions from council members at this point? I'm scanning the screen. Iris.
I realize that in a lot of ways, this is something I never think about much anyway. And I'm wondering, since the sewage treatment plant for Sonoma Valley is practically in Shelville where it floods, what is this, I guess, how much of a concern relative to other areas is that for the valley, or for the sewage district? It's in its entirety. Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Parastou, do you want to address that?
Why? Oh, yeah, sure. So I think the wastewater treatment plant is a critical facility because it takes sewer from everybody in the Sonoma Valley. So it's not just for the springs; it's for everyone.
Right. I think that's true,
I think
but I'm wondering how.
Yeah, I think your question, Iris, was what's the relative risk from flooding to the sanitation wastewater, to the wastewater treatment facility? And
yeah.
Barry, sorry to interrupt, Barry. This is Kent Gilfie. I'm sorry to.
Hello, Kent.
I just
Thank
wanted to be able to respond to the question. So Kent Gilfie, Deputy Chief Engineer with Sonoma Water. And I want to thank my colleagues for putting the presentation together, and thank you to the council for hearing us. So our wastewater treatment plant is out in Shelville, where significant flooding does happen in the southern end of the valley. The plant is pretty well protected from the 100-year flood event. However, flooding down there can certainly affect the hydraulics of our system. We are looking at sea level rise, its potential to affect our discharges from the plant, as well as peak flows that can occur from major storm events and such as that. But the plant itself is fairly well protected, does not flood under the 100-year event at present. With regards to climate projections, I don't know if either Carlos or Parastou recall what our current climate adaptation plan was projecting under certain climate scenarios. But in general, the treatment plant is fairly well protected from flooding. But that's not to say that our system as a whole is not vulnerable to extreme storm events and overflows that can occur as a result of that.
And I guess my question also would be, considering that, how imperiled is the Sonoma, the entire Sonoma Valley plant relative to other plants in the county? I know that the one on the west side between Santa Rosa and Guerneville is actually kind of near the Laguna, so that's another.
Yeah, I think actually I apologize. I didn't get your question the first time. So I think actually the Sonoma Valley treatment plant is in better location and situation compared to other treatment plants that we have in terms of risks.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Joanne, did you have a question?
Yes. The question is, in the presentation, it was referenced a couple of times, the climate adaptation plan. Is that something internal to your department, or are you referencing a document that has been prepared by the county or is being used by county agencies in general?
Since I made some reference to it, it is a document that the Sonoma Water is working on for all our facilities and all our core function from a water supply, flood control, and sanitation standpoint. At present, we are in the development of that climate adaptation plan, and it is something we are working on getting out as a public document.
Is that likely to come out this year?
Barry, maybe weigh in if you know the timing, but I understand this fall we are trying to get this document rolled out.
Yes, my understanding is that it's scheduled to go to the Board of Supervisors in September.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions from council members? So I always need context. So I'm wondering if you could give me some information about if this doesn't happen, then this happens. So, or if we screw this up, then this happens. So it always helps me to kind of understand that a little bit. If somebody could provide me with a little context.
I'll take a stab at that. As Parastou had mentioned, the local hazard mitigation plan that's being prepared really sets a basis for us to be able to qualify for certain funding, federal funding, administered through FEMA and Cal OES. So it's federally sourced funds that are administered through the state. So if we didn't have a local hazard mitigation plan in place, one, we would be more unaware of what some of our vulnerabilities and risks are, but also we would be ineligible for some substantial funding that is out there to help us address these issues. The plan develops a long list of mitigation actions and vulnerabilities we can tackle. There's only a fraction of them that we can be prioritized high enough to expect that we could have the resources and funding to address. But as was mentioned in the presentation, we have been able to implement numerous projects on water supply and our sanitation fronts, utilizing FEMA funds. So if we did not have this document, there would be less projects that we could implement to help enhance the resilience of our systems to various natural hazards. Again, most of them have been seismic that we've been addressing, some flood control projects, and sanitation reliability projects as well. So anyway, this document is helping us secure more funding that we otherwise would not have available to us.
So this funding helps, it might enhance the day-to-day operation of the work, but really what you're looking at is trying to keep natural disasters from having a tremendous impact on our community.
That's certainly the goal upon our sanitation system, specifically with this document. We have 3 local hazard mitigation plans that we manage as an agent, as Sonoma Water. One is this one for Sonoma Valley County Sanitation District. Another is for Russian River County Sanitation District. And then we have a little more overarching one that covers our water supply and some of our other smaller enterprises, sanitation and flood.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I appreciate that. Are there any other, Hannah and then Ray, I think?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a sanitation engineer, and I'm just wondering why FEMA would want public comment on something that takes kind of a high level understanding of a system like this. And I'm just wondering if you've ever, I think Parastou said that this is the first time you guys have had to get public comment, but do you guys get good feedback from the general public about a hazard mitigation plan regarding our sanitation? Just seems weird to me personally.
Barry, you want to speak to that?
Well, I think that, as I mentioned, the public comments that we received in the past on these plans is fairly limited. But I think the reason the FEMA wants us to solicit public comments is to make sure that if there are concerns the community has specifically about perhaps specific locations or particular hazards that we may not have covered. You know, for instance, in an area that might be really active seismically, or there may have been a previous seismic activity in an area, or a mudslide or a landslide that we may not be aware of. I mean, that's just one example of something that could happen. So I think it's really a matter of bringing this kind of plan to the public's attention to know that it's something we're addressing and something we're preparing for.
Thank you. Ray?
I just pulled up Google Map and I was just like looking at the elevation there around the fields around the facility. It's like 13 feet above sea level, and going up to the banks on the like holding ponds is like 24 feet above sea level. Is this facility expected to last us for another generation, or what's the plan here with climate change? Are we just gonna, I'm curious.
That's a good question. I'll try to field that. I mean, the plant, I assume you're talking, the facility you're referring to, I assume you're referring to the treatment plant itself out in Shovel. Of course, our facilities as a whole that were evaluated for the district include our whole.
Emerald Drive.
Okay. Just to put it in context, the LHMP is covering all our facilities that extend all the way up to Glen Ellen, the whole collection system, the piping system network that conveys sewage down to the treatment plant. Then there's the treatment plant facility down there in the Shelville area. And then there's our recycled water system and discharge. Wintertime, sometimes we discharge to the bay during the wintertime if we're not able to reuse 100% of the water for beneficial reuse. So there's kind of three elements that Parastou made reference to. With regards to the plant, it was saw its last serious renovation in 1978. I don't remember when what its design life was, but yes, we're projecting that plant is going to be there for decades to come, and we need to plan accordingly. And that's kind of part of why we look at climate projections and these risks, because we do want the facility to be there for a long time to come. There's no plans to replace that facility in our current long-range financial planning.
And I'm sure you're taking population into consideration, and we as a valley are, as you heard earlier, we are shrinking in residents who live here year round, and it's becoming very much a vacation spot for many people. So that's also something to consider as this works moving forward. I think too is important what our population is starting to look like.
Sure, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Iris?
I guess considering the weather events this summer with the domes of, the weather events described as domes sitting over large areas with rain coming down in the summer, which is unusual here, but could happen, I guess. Climate change concerns me more. I have always considered that my neighborhood's pretty safe because of the location. We're kind of going uphill. I'm on the east side of Highway 12 in Boy Springs, and I'm starting to think maybe not. If we get a whole lot of rain all at once, presumably in the winter. So the climate change issue is certainly a concern. So, and 100-year floods are happening with more frequency too. So anyway, you guys know all that. So thank you.
So we'll move on to public comment.
Para los miembros de la comunidad que desean hacer un comentario o una pregunta, este es el momento. Por favor, de utilizar la aplicación de levantar mano y se les otorgará el permiso. Members of the public who wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature and you will be allowed to make your comment or question. I see one raised hand. Fred,
Yes,
go ahead.
Good evening. I was interested in a slide that Parastou had that said that it increased recycled water system capacity. And so I understand that the existing ponds have a capacity, maximum capacity, I think 17,000 acre feet a year, like if it rained all the time, like they could do that much. So I would imagine that increasing recycled water system capacity would not mean another pond, but I was curious about, does that capacity mean bigger pipes, as far as the capacity goes?
Parastou, are you familiar with the specific slide reference that Fred's making?
I am not sure if we reference about increasing capacity. We said increase reliability of the system during and after natural disasters. So the LHMP is looking at the existing assets.
Would you like me to go through the slides real quick, Parastou?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, let me get it up again real quick.
Although Fred, I'll say I'm very impressed with your recollection of our storage capacity, apparently.
Fred
don't
knows
think
many things.
I don't think I could have told you that number.
Bear with me, I'm pulling it up.
If I'm still alive, I just had a meeting with Sonoma Water about the recycled water system for the GSA, so it's all fresh in my mind.
I see.
Karina, Hannah thinks it's the first slide with the goals.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me know, Fred, which one you're referring to.
Increase there, go back.
Capabilities, yeah, and increase reliability of treatment system capabilities. I guess I substituted capacity for capabilities.
Okay.
Yeah, the intent there just being to build resilience into our recycled water system, that element of our overall infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments at this point? Okay, I'll come back to council. Seeing none at this point. Thank you all so much for coming. And yes, we would like you to come back and talk to us about water at a later date. That would be amazing. So thank you. And thank you all very much for staying on with us and being a part of this meeting. We really appreciate it. And if there's anything else we can do in the future to help, let us know.
Thank you.
Great.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we're going to move on to the, we're getting towards the end. We're going to move to the ad hocs. And just a reminder that this is just really giving the very, limited, important information that we need to know from each of our ad hoc committees. We'll start with Map Your Neighborhood and Dana, and then we have Fire Safe or Firewise Council. Avram, ours is going to be short, and then we do have a possible community outreach creation ad hoc. So Dana, are you with us? There you are. Hi, Dana. Thank you so much.
I've been here, I promise. I
know you
other
have.
things.
That's amazing. Thank you. I know you have a little one back there too, so thank you.
She's here. She's waiting for bedtime. So my update will be really quick. I was just looking over my last presentation from last month's meeting, and the same priorities continue to have priority. I'm working with some of the block leaders to get a meeting on the calendar, hopefully in person, but we'll see how folks are feeling about meeting in person, or if Zoom is still most convenient for folks. But we're excited about that. That should be coming up in the next few weeks. And with all of the in-person outreach that we've been doing also with the Neighbor Fests, we've got a great contact list of folks that are interested in implementing Map Your Neighborhood in their neighborhoods. So we'll be doing a training. So I don't have a solid date yet on that, but as soon as I do, everyone is welcome to attend that has interest. So I continue looking for folks. If you know anybody that's interested or have a neighborhood in mind, please send them my way, or connect me with a person you think would be great, and I'm happy to follow up.
Thank you, Dana. Ray?
Thank you guys also for having the sanitation. We don't always think about that when we're talking about emergency preparedness, and it's a huge thing. So yeah. Learn some new things.
Yeah. This has been a very informative meeting.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ray?
I can be pretty quick. We did find out that from Gary Johnson that we're over 7,000 residences, so we're not really eligible for FireWise community certification. So it's Fire Safe Council all the way down. And that's my report.
Thank you, Ray. I know you're working hard on that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We need any more volunteers we need to form a board for or find a fiscal sponsor. So that'll be the next steps. But all right.
Oh, we should talk about that. There may be some ideas brewing in the background.
Let's get together and talk.
Yeah. Arts in the Springs. Avram. I took a vacation and we didn't meet. I'm sorry.
Avram, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Avram.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, I was very anxious to get a meeting with our ad hoc together, but our illustrious leader really needed a break and went off to Hawaii. So we'll have a meeting shortly. We'll be able to report back something more interesting in our next meeting.
Yes, thank you. My apologies. So we do want, go ahead.
Question. I remember from, I believe the last time, you talking about painting the or what do you call them? The utility vaults in the springs, and that PG&E is opposed to that they won't let it happen. And I'm wondering why.
We don't know that they're completely opposed to it, but it is a process to get permission. So that we're investigating that plus a couple of other options. But we don't know that it's a flat no, but you've got to do some work to get a yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's done in other places, I know, and it looks really cool. So, okay, thanks.
Dana?
I was just going to mention there was one actually on the corner of my neighborhood, right in front of the paint center, that they redid that about a month ago now, and it looks really cool.
It looks very cool.
Yeah, it looks very cool, but there was a whole big upset over it. And it's still, who knows what will happen. You know, it's bureaucracies that you have to navigate. And everybody's got their little domain. And, you know, if people didn't consult with them, their feathers get ruffled, so to speak.
If I may, through the chair, just real quick to touch on that. I did the initial investigation, and PG&E, like Chair Iturri said, they didn't say absolutely no, but it was more of a safety, precaution. Caltrans is a lot more flexible, but they do have a book of rules and things you need to follow and do, and it's very involved, and it involves TPW, and our office is helping the ad hoc with all the process, but it is lengthy. And even if we followed everything by the rules and dotted our I's and crossed our T's, we're looking at potentially years. So as much as we see a lot of these, show up all the time, they've been dealing with the process, and things did change about 5 years ago to make it even harder for the community to make this happen. But once it does, I'm sure the Springs community will appreciate the art that comes up. And yes, Dana, that box is there and it's beautiful. Unfortunately, the protocols were not followed, so who knows how long it will be there. If there's anything I can do to stall it, I will. But of course, we have to, go through the proper channels. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Karina, for the clarification. Okay, so we need a community outreach ad hoc, and we have some new members. And so we're wondering if there's any interest in perhaps some folks doing some community outreach to encourage MAC participation, to provide people with information about what we're doing. Hannah does an amazing job prior to joining the council. She was writing a summary of the of the meeting and putting it on Facebook. And that was great because she was putting it on the Springs page and it was getting out there. So that was amazing. My newsletter was not quite as well read as her notes. So so it would be great to have some folks working on that. Hannah, I'm still writing a summary if that's okay. That's awesome. Would you like to run the outreach ad hoc? Maybe you and Jesus can work together on that?
Yeah, I would work with Jesus on that, but yes, definitely. We can do that. Or are you getting voluntold, Jesus? Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Right to refuse.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like a little bit more direction.
Totally, I am. Yes, I am willing to help you with outreach. I just would like a little bit more of direction of how to correctly involve the community. But yes, I'm happy to do that.
Maybe Karina and I can meet with you and Hannah and have a conversation about that.
That sounds good.
And Joanne, is her ad hoc, is she, because she's on the oh my gosh, I'm not going to get that right. SVCAC, that committee that you're on, is that count as her because she's representing us in both places?
It's not a committee. She is the liaison. So it sort of is expected for Joanne to be able to provide updates at the MAC meetings and likewise, updates at the SVCAC. But
So-
she can get involved in another ad hoc if she chooses and if there's an opportunity, absolutely.
Okay. So Joanne, we will place a placeholder on the next agenda for you to give us an update on what's taking place in your meeting. And if there's an ad hoc you'd like to join, the Fire Safe, Map Your Neighborhood, Arts Council, or community outreach, please let us know.
Okay.
Next process is just to acknowledge that there is a creation of the ad hoc community outreach, if that's the name you choose.
Yep.
Would somebody like to motion the creation of a community outreach ad hoc? Iris, are you motioning?
I'd like to motion the creation of a community outreach ad hoc.
Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, Ray. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
I don't see anyone disagreeing. Okay. All right, great. Awesome. So the next item is consideration of future agenda items, which the list is super duper long. And we just added, oh, Hannah, did you have a question?
No, I have things I want to add to the list.
Okay. Let me read through the list and then we'll add to the list. So right now we have Steve Aker will be giving quarterly updates, and I think the Madsen projects will be giving quarterly updates, and we're going to try to sprinkle those through the year. We have an Adopt a Road program. We also have Creek Cleanups Initiative. PG&E tree removal, and general services from Sonoma County Parking Enforcement.
If I may, Chair Iturri, I just want to clarify, those are some requests that came through for you to mention to the MAC and see if there's any interest in receiving presentations on any of those items.
Okay, so I think that we want Steve to come back. That seemed pretty, Steve and the Madsen project. So we'll put it, what about Adopt a Road program? Is there interest in that? Okay, seeing none. The creek cleanups. Yeah. People are shaking their head. Okay. PG&E tree removal.
I think there's something even more important than PG&E tree removal, and that's fire hardening under AB 38. When the kind fire people came, there was some discussion, but again, I don't think people are aware of AB 38 and what that means. And we have a real issue here in the Springs. We have neighborhoods that are just chock full of trees and shrubs and undergrowth, which is really quite dangerous.
Well, let's see. Avram, I'll see if when I meet with Karina, we'll see what this entails and if we can get a component of AB 38 included into it.
That would be great, because I think people should be made aware of it, because it will impact everyone.
Okay, parking enforcement. That's not super. Okay, Hannah, what would you like to add to the list?
Okay, so there's something called the pedestrian plan put out by Caltrans, and I find it super interesting. I can send, I guess, Karina information for you guys to see, but it classifies our current, it affects, of course, Highway 12, because that's a Caltrans highway, and they classify our current status for all of the road and where they're going to improve it and where are problem areas, and they have tier. It would just be really interesting for us to hear how this impacts us, since Highway 12 impacts us as an area so much. And I've connected with someone there who said that they can give a presentation. I haven't nailed down a date, but it's someone from the Complete Streets department. So this is who we want to talk to, or I think.
Can you pass their name on to us, please?
That's great.
Right now?
No.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'll send it to Karina.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that, Hannah? I think it's such an important subject. I happened to be in Oakland a couple of days ago, and if you haven't been down Telegraph Avenue, it's changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've really made it safe for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Right.
And have you seen it, Hannah?
I used to live in Oakland in the past. I don't know. There, are you talking about kind of by Koreatown or by the?
Yeah, well, before Koreatown, Temescal.
Okay.
And I didn't recognize it. I was kind of taken aback by it. But I could see that a similar plan for us to really get traffic off our road and get people back in the community out there.
Right. So I think hearing about this plan would be a good start. And then the other thing that I've been seeing personally, and I've seen on Facebook, is tagging and graffiti. There's been a little uptick, I would say. The bridge was tagged and then fixed already. But just talking about what we can do. I'll go out there with a graffiti cleaner, but that stuff's expensive. And sometimes I don't know. I could get a pressure washer, but I would like to talk about tagging and graffiti removal specifically.
Okay. Anything else from council members? Iris?
Yes, actually, the pedestrian plan segues into my concern over bus transportation. It would be great to have a conversation about bus transportation and getting better bus service in the valley. I think we've all noticed that it's not very effective, and if we want to get people out of cars, that's a good place to work on that too. So and also when it was so hot here, it was over 110. I saw a woman riding her bicycle up the sidewalk, and I'm not, and she looked like she was coming from work, so she had on work clothes, long pants, the whole thing. And I thought, boy, this is not a great idea. We can have people falling over from heat prostration if we don't have a solution here. So,
thank you. Anything else from the council?
Yeah, one additional thing, we're moving on almost 7 years of working on the spring specific plan. I'm hoping that by 10 years we'll have it, but maybe we could speed it up. I don't know, we haven't heard an update. We keep hearing of a draft, but it seems to get lost somewhere.
Anything else from council members? Mari Carmen.
Hi, okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just talking about water, I think water conservation, now that, Valley Over the Moon Water District sent out the email with the necessary reduction, 15%, which is almost about an average of 30 gallons per household. I think that would be very important on how to let the community know how they can conserve water. And I think they're going to be doing another Save Water or Drought Kit Day. And prices are also going up or went up. So people are the bills that they're getting this month or next month will probably gonna be a shocker for a lot of people. So how can we do community education regarding that?
Thank you. So just so you know, we take all of your ideas into consideration and we work really hard to craft agendas that meet them. But because there's so many things, it does take time. It doesn't happen at the next agenda. So just to keep that in mind, that they're on our list and we will get to them over the course of the next few months. So, okay. All right. Thank you all. I wanted to, we're getting close to adjournment here, and we lost a community member over the last couple of days, Patrick Hoffman, who was the Taekwondo master at the Taekwondo Center. And we just want to close in his honor and his memory. So our hearts go out to his family and his community. So thank you. And we want to thank everyone for being here and being a part of the meeting. Also KSVY again, Supervisor Gorin's office, and Karina, thank you so much. Lynn Marie for taking all the notes, and then Jordy for repeating all our words. So thank you, thank you. And I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn in honor of Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, Ray. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the meeting is adjourned at 9:32. Thank you all so much and have a beautiful evening, and we'll see you next time. And Avram, we'll get together. Ray will get together. And all the other folks that we need to talk to. Karina, thank you.